Okay. There we go. And so we ask that we just keep your video off if you'd like. You can keep it on, but microphones on mute until the end of the session if possible for the question and answer portion. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the chat. All right. And also, again, feel free to share your LinkedIn profile URL and maybe your student email in the chat if you'd like. And a Vanguard representative can follow up with you and connect with you in the future there too. All right. And then the next slide we have here, just our access and accommodations. Your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University, it's very important to us. It's our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the different resources we have here. Online students, you can reach out to the Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. Campus students, please contact the Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118. And for SNHU staff and faculty, please reach out to the Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. And then finally, just before I pass it on to Joseph, just want to let everybody know, if you are seeking career assistance, please be sure to connect with our SNHU Career Services team. You can contact COCE Career at snhu.edu or call 866-672-1458. Support from the SNHU Career Services team is included during and after your academic journey, as it's a lifetime benefit. And our career advisors can support you with resume assistance, interview preparation, and many other career resources to assist you in your efforts. So we encourage you to also stay engaged with our internal social portal, SNHU Connect, and through the other social media outlets that we have available for you to join and connect with your other fellow learners. So that is all I have on my side. Let me go ahead and cancel my share screen and pass that over to you, Joseph. And let me, without further ado, introduce Joseph Ferenchiak with Vanguard. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joseph.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here. So welcome everyone to our How to Get Hired 101 event. So I am accompanied here by my colleague, Hannah Angelo. She is going to be monitoring the chat and answering any questions as they come through there. And she'll also be helping with the Q&A portion at the end of this presentation. So to give a little bit of background about myself, I have been with Vanguard for about 4 years at this point. I joined the company back in 2017, right after graduating from my undergraduate program there. I started out as a client relationship associate within the brokerage track there, processing stock and ETF trades before completing an internship within Vanguard's Human Resources as a recruiter for that same position. From there, I actually came into the university relations space just this past November, so I am a relatively new addition to the team there. And so this really just shows that we are a company that really celebrates that rotational culture as well as that upward mobility there. So I hope that gets that point across there. So before we get started, Hannah, did you want to give a quick introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Joe. And thanks everyone for joining us this Tuesday afternoon. I keep thinking it's Wednesday, which it was, but good to see you all. My name is Hannah Angelo. I am also a lead on Vanguard's University Relations team. Been at Vanguard for about 4 years now and in the early talent attraction space for the last 2.5. I honestly have a very similar story to Joe. I started in one of our client-facing roles as a client relationship associate, helping to service our client accounts and helping them reach their financial goals. I graduated from Westchester in 2018 and started in that role. So any one who's local to the area might be familiar with that university, but I actually always had a passion for the human resources space. So similar to Joe, I was able to take on an internal internship with the university recruiting team about a year into my original role on the phones. Had a chance to connect with students in person and travel out to those in-person events. So that has changed. Definitely miss seeing you all face to face and on campus, but really special now being able to connect virtually. I think it provides more flexibility and accessibility for students and employers alike. So in my role now, I am a lead on the team, been in the full-time lead role for a little over a year and a half, and I support hiring for some of our specialty programs, which includes some of our rotational development programs along with our internships. So really excited to be here today. Definitely, here to answer any questions that you all might have. I'll keep my eye on the chat, but Joe and I are open books, so please feel free to make the most of this session and ask any questions that you all are wondering about.
All right, thank you so much. Perfect. So to get into our agenda here, so of course we'll be starting off with who are we? What is our company? What we stand for, as well as what job opportunities we currently have. As you all go through your career search there, this should at least give you some guidance there. In addition to that, however, we will also be going into how to get hired. What does our recruiting process look like, and what can you do to get ready for and get prepared to excel? So to really touch on who we are, why Vanguard? So if you were a client, why would you choose Vanguard? Some of you may know we are, of course, an investment firm engaged with mutual fund and ETF trading, retirement plans, 401ks, brokerage accounts, trust accounts, et cetera. So some of the things that come to my mind as to why a client would choose to invest with us is the fact that we are a low-cost leader. We have lower expense ratios than most other firms within the industry, while still providing that world-class client service, and we have that reputation for the trust between our clients and advisors. Clients are truly the priority over here. Now, to touch upon our mission statement, to take a stand for all investors, to treat them fairly, and to give them the best chance for investment success. Now, when applying to any company, it's important to look around on their website for their mission statement, as this can be your first step to learning about what that company is all about. Now, to take a look at our mission statement, a good example of how we really live this each day is the fact that none of our advisors work off of commission. So if you're a client with us and you have a financial advisor, they're not making money off of the recommendations that they're making for you. So you can feel confident that we don't have any conflicting interests, and our only measure of success is how well their portfolios do. Now, our goal is to give each investor that best chance of investment success by providing the tools, educating them, and providing guidance so that they can make big investment decisions by themselves, so that they don't need the hand-holding. They can feel empowered to take control of their finances and their future. Now, whether you have $5,000 with us or $1 million with us, you are all treated the same at Vanguard. Everyone gets that white glove service. And we stand for 3 C's, for crew, clients, and community, which during this portion of the presentation, I'll be touching briefly upon all of those points. So we talked about clients. Let's talk about working at Vanguard. Why work for us? Now, take notes. One thing that our interviewers are looking for is what you already know about us, what you've researched on our website, and how you can really add to it. So why work at Vanguard? You're seen as an individual here, not a number. And if you've seen the Vanguard vessel, that represents us, the crew. And you may already start to notice we have a lot of ship references. Our employees are called crew members. Our cafeteria is called the galley. Our on-site gyms are called shipshape. And it's really by no coincidence. Our founder, John Bogle, was a huge naval enthusiast, and he named the company after Admiral Nelson's flagship at the Battle of the Nile in 1798, since the name resonated with leadership and progress. We're a very team-oriented and collaborative team. Now, as mentioned before, you will be heard and valued with our company. So at least twice a month, you'll have one-on-one meetings with your team leader where you'll drive the conversation, whether that's performance management, career development, or you just need someone to talk to. And at least twice a year, you'll have what's called a skip level meeting where you'll meet your boss's boss. It's a little bit more formal, at least 30 minutes in length, and it's a great opportunity to tap into senior leadership, network, and it gives that two-way feedback. They want to hear your voice and take away actual items that the company can work on. And we want to be recognized not only as one of the top financial companies, but also an institution that values its crew and their diverse backgrounds. Now, to touch very briefly upon our history, since there is a lot of history, we don't have time for all of that. We were founded back in 1975. And for the first time, mutual funds were choosing to mutualize, taking back the responsibilities customarily held by a fund management company. And about 1 year later, the first index investment trust, which is now the 500 index fund, opened to investors. And it was the first fund of its kind to be available for investors just like you and me. Now, you'll see here the Vanguard Effect. This was a nickname coined by independent experts to describe a game of follow the leader. Our passion for low-cost investing was and will always be one of our driving forces. And when others take notice and follow suit, expense ratios fall more broadly across the industry, and every investor wins. Now, to touch upon the community, this is one thing that you may not think to look at within a company is the philanthropy and how a company gives back to the community. So this is a very important pillar of Vanguard and our morals, really. So we do take pride in this philanthropy, and we celebrate different ways for both crew and the corporation itself on ways to give back to the community. So some of the examples are listed here. I won't go into detail on all of them, of course, but just one that really sticks out for me is our Strong Start for Kids program, which is a series of fundraisers and events that we actually hold to promote school readiness and give back to children who are getting ready for school in the greater Philadelphia, Charlotte, Phoenix, and London greater areas there. We have different events such as 5Ks, donation matches, etc. Additionally, our crew members each receive a day of volunteer time off, which does not count against your PTO, and it lets you go back out into the community and give back in a way that's meaningful for you. So now, as you go through your career search, we have different events and different programs that help get you prepared for or help you get your foot into the door within our company. And so these can look different depending on, say, which year you are in school. Available to freshmen through seniors, we have our Explore Days. We also have our North Star program, which is a newer one, going more in depth about who we are. Well, there'll be guest speakers there. There'll be more information sessions about our specific roles. And so these you can actually sign up for them over Handshake. So right now we are still finalizing the dates as to when they will be. But if you go on Handshake, look up Vanguard. Once they become available, you'll be able to apply to join one of these sessions here. For more information, of course, you'll see to text VG Explore, VG or a VG HBCU. Well, this is not a historically Black college or university, so you don't have to click that one. But you can text it to 313131 for more information on these opportunities. Now, let's see. Our entry-level positions within the client-facing roles, if you're looking at pursuing a career within finance, two of our main opportunities would be our client relationship associate position, as well as our retirement plan services associate. Both of these positions are going to get your foot in the door within finance. One is the client relationship associate is going to have you obtain your SIE Series 7 and your Series 63. And the retirement plan associate will have you obtain your SIE Series 6 and 63. Now, client relationship will work more so with brokerage accounts, IRAs, and personal retirement vehicles, while the retirement plan associate will work with 401ks and more of those employer-sponsored plans. There's, of course, more information on these on our website as well as on Handshake if you're interested in learning more about that. But now, let's get into your next steps beyond your degree. There's a whole big world out there. So you are the future workforce. Now, by 2025, millennials will make up about 75% of the workforce. And by 2030, Generation Z would make up about 36%. And it's constantly growing. As we are growing and moving forward into the future, these numbers are really only going to increase until they eventually decrease. But we won't worry about that for now. So let's talk about your brand. Now, I don't know about your degree programs, but back when I was doing my degree program with my business major at Arcadia University, a big component of my internship class and my senior capstone class is this concept of a personal brand. So who are you? How do you want to be perceived? What's your reputation, or how would you like your reputation to be? The steps that you take now, the decisions that you make now are going to shape that as you navigate your future there. So for all the millennials and the Gen Zs in the room, think about a time where you said something along the lines of, oh, that's so on brand, or that's so off brand. This persona can very much carry over into the professional space. So there are ways to integrate it, and there are ways to separate it. And you may have heard about personal branding in these classes, and I'll give you a spoiler. Once you graduate and once you really enter the workforce, there isn't as much of an emphasis on creating this personal brand because it will have already really been established. You'll already have decided this is how I want to be perceived at work. So think about it now as you're practicing, as you're studying, and as you're forming yourself and preparing yourself for the workforce. How do you want to be perceived? One of the big ways that you do this is on social media. So I'm not sure if they've gone into much detail about, say, how to create your LinkedIn profiles or how to really finalize and prepare those LinkedIn profiles. But some tips that have taken or that I've done with my own profile is select an appropriate photo. Say if you're a graduating senior and you have your senior headshot taken, if that's something that you all do, use that photo. If not, a picture of yourself dressed nicely. We all have iPhones or we all have Android phones, and they all have really good cameras now. So you can really just take a picture of yourself in front of like a blank background, something that just showcases your professional presence. Develop a professional summary. What are you studying in school? And how do you want to relate that into your future? What type of career path are you looking for? Recruiters, when going through LinkedIn, are going to notice all of these things because it's really the first impression we're going to have. So when you're creating your profile, list your top skills and your work experience. Your recent, I even go back to the experience I have in high school. You never know. Including your internships and on-campus jobs. Describe your major wins or your major projects and the value you brought to your team, your class, or school in 2 to 3 short sentences. And be active. Go through your feed, like people's posts, congratulate people on their promotions. This gives you more visibility as you go through your job search. But some do's and don'ts. Research companies, identify opportunities. Post a flattering and professional photo of yourself. Showcase your skills. Check your spelling and grammar. That's a big one. Don't post anything inappropriate. Don't complain about previous employers. Don't share anything about illegal activities. That should go without saying, but it's here nonetheless. And don't make any discriminatory remarks related to race, gender, or religion. Those are big no's. We'll notice. So especially in the virtual world we live in, how your brand, your online presence is going to be even more critical since I don't know if you noticed in the past 2 years, but there's been a lot more virtual presence than in-person presence. So how you appear online has become all the more important. So most of your interactions with recruiters will be on LinkedIn, through email, or through the phone. I know right now with our recruiting process, it's all virtual. We have phone screens or we'll have video interviews, but nothing's in person right now. So how do you want to be perceived behind that digital curtain? Now, we won't spend too much time on this, of course, just because we only have an hour. But if you're not on your phones right now, take out your phones, look at your LinkedIn profile, and does it match what I'm talking about here? Are there any gaps that you notice? How would you change your profile? So based on what we discussed, think about the ways you'd like to update and refresh it so that when you're applying for those jobs and a recruiter looks at your profile, so that they'll really like what they see and that they'll message you or they'll invite you to apply for a position. But let's also talk about resumes. Now, when I was in school, of course, we did have resume building workshops and everything there. I've noticed during my recruiting days that isn't always the case. So I do want to go over some best practices on how to make sure that your resume is clean, professional, and readable. Keep it to 1 page. Unless you have so much experience that you literally cannot keep it to 1 page, keep it to 1 page. Change the font sizes, condense it, and really highlight the most important aspects of your prior experience. Research the job description and tailor your resume accordingly there. This will take some effort, especially if you're applying to more than one position. But have multiple resources review your resume. Have your parents look at it. Have your friends look at it. Have the Office of Career Development look at it. Email it to people and have them really tear it apart. And the more you do it, the better it's going to look. Now, the text of your resume should be clean, subtle, and readable. The text should be in black, though I see no problem with having an accent color to help give it a little pop. Me personally, I have a purple accent on my resume, and I printed on very white paper for good contrast, of course. And if you're using a template, think of the ways to modify it and make the document your own. And in terms of fonts are always way more important than people may think they are. If you're a fan of serifed fonts, look at Times New Roman, Garamond, or Book Antiqua. Or if you're a fan of non-serif fonts like I am, Arial, Helvetica, or Tahoma. Now, this next slide, I personally find really interesting. It's where do we look? Where do recruiters look on your resume? We have a lot to look through. We have a lot of resumes. So it's not realistic for us to be able to read through each and every resume line by line. So it's important that when you make the bullet points on your resume, keep them no longer than one line each and only highlight what's really important, things that will grab the recruiter's eye. Now, this page right here, this technology was described in a Business Insider article that used eye tracking to watch the recruiter's eye movement. So what you're seeing with these heat marks here is quite literally where the recruiter is looking on the page. And the study concluded in that short time that recruiters look at resumes, they are most commonly looking at graduation year, GPA, your job title, companies, employment dates, education, and anything additional. But between the lines, not always. So bear that in mind as you're creating the resume. Now, one bit of so let's see here. I already said that. Cool. To give an example of a clean, professional-looking resume, I do not know who Olivia Pope is. This was part of the article, but one line: Bachelor's in Science and Politics, minor, Public Relations, GPA 4.0. She was an ambitious one. And one line per bullet. So it's really easy, really concise to read in a short period of time. So we can determine this is a person that we want to interview. You can visit Princeton University's resumes examples for additional cases such as these. If interested, I can always share the link. So let's talk about interview preparation. You got your resume, you research companies, and you're ready to submit that application. You're ready to go through that recruiting process. So research. I've interviewed for several companies in my day, and I can tell you, out of every single interview, one question is in every single one, and that is, what do you know about us? What do you know about this position? Have an answer for it. So ensure that you have a thorough understanding of the company's purpose or mission, research the company's culture and accolades, look on Glassdoor, and gain a complete understanding of the role and the responsibilities so that you can prepare examples that align with their qualifications. Recruiters, even if you don't have the experience necessarily for a role, like say direct experience, say for a client relationship associate, you may not have finance experience, or you may not have customer service experience. How do you tie your previous experience that in ways that can transfer into the role? How do you convince the recruiter that, oh, I may not have worked in a call center before, but I have worked at the pizza shop down the road over the summers. And I was working with this customer here. This situation happened, ABC, XYZ. I feel this can tie into this position because ABC, XYZ. And when you apply for a position, you're going to need to have a resume, possibly a cover letter. I can tell you for a client relationship associate and very likely for the retirement plan services associate, you're not really going to need a cover letter, but it doesn't hurt. You can always attach one if you would like. And practice. Think about how you'll respond to questions and ask a friend to conduct a mock interview. If you have access to an Office of Career Development, have them do a mock interview. And one thing that I've done is attend real interviews. Say even if it's a position you're not necessarily interested in actually pursuing, you can still get the practice by interviewing for it. And then that way you can practice how you work with the jitters as you go through the interview process. And remember to dress professionally. Wear a suit if possible. And then after your interview, send a thank you note to everyone that you interviewed with, thanking them for their time, thanking them for the experience, and highlighting a point during the interview that really stuck out that showcases your interest within the role. Now, our interview process will often vary depending on what role you're applying to. I recruited specifically for our client relationship associate roles. So some positions may have 2 rounds. This position actually only has 1 round, and it's typically conducted in the form of a phone screen. Now, this will depend. Sometimes there will be 2 rounds even for this position, depending on if we need to obtain more information. We typically ask between 3 and 5 behavioral questions. And if you are moved to a second round, you'll often be interviewing with a team leader or manager within the role itself. Now, as you go through this interview, we are big fans of the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. These are very common within Vanguard's interviews as well as interviews outside of the company as well. And we ask these questions to gauge how you've reacted in previous situations and how your job skills will transfer into your role at Vanguard. So it's for that reason. Don't be afraid to use an example that doesn't necessarily directly align with finance. You may not have finance experience, or maybe you have it in your degree program, but none of your work experience. And that's okay, because with, say, client relationship associate, this being an entry-level role, if you have the motivation to learn finance, we'll be providing you with that background, since we'll be taking you through the licensing program. We will be training you on how to work within the call center. So talking about your learning agility and ways that you've learned something new quickly, or ways that you've handled difficult client scenarios that have ended up in a positive manner. That's really the goal of these STAR questions, is how to tie different skills into what we're looking for. So some advice that I always give out is to sit down and create a Word document and think about all of your work and your school experiences, specifically ones where you've ended up learning something or overcame a major obstacle, and create bullets. Write down as many details as possible for that situation, task, action, result. There is no such thing as too much information for this exercise. And Google examples of STAR questions and think of various situations that could fit with those questions. And you'll find that the more examples that you have, the even more STAR questions you can actually answer based on a couple of scenarios that you have. And the more readily able you'll be to answer a question that comes to you out of left field, which it will. So to give you some sample behavioral questions, of course. Now, these are, of course, modified. They're not necessarily the ones that we do ask in our interviews, but they can be similar, and the gist is there. Tell me about a time when you needed to communicate a difficult message. If you were presented with that question just out of the blue, how would you answer it? And then if you reflect on your past experiences, how do you think you could really answer that type of question? Prepare short descriptions of each situation and be ready to give details if asked. Be sure that each story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and be ready to describe the situation, including the task at hand, your action, and the outcome. Be sure that the outcome or result reflects positively on you, even if the result itself was not favorable. You can talk about how you failed a test. You can talk about how you had a negative situation at work and you had the opportunity to improve. That's fine, believe it or not, as long as the result is positive and that you've learned from the experience and you've demonstrated that you've overcome the experience. That really shows a lot about how you overcome obstacles and you overcome pitfalls and failures. And that has merit. We know that you're not perfect. No one's perfect. You will make mistakes, and that's fine. It's all a part of life. But be specific. Don't generalize about several events. Give a detailed accounting of one event, and vary your examples. Don't take them all from just one area of your life, unless it's a really good example, of course. And don't be afraid to talk about those negative events. Now, one area that I feel like isn't talked about enough is beyond getting prepared for the questions that's going to be asked of you, and how to prepare your resume and how to conduct yourself professionally on LinkedIn, is what questions do you ask the recruiter? And I can't stress this enough. This is just as much an interview for you as it is for your recruiter. We may be interviewing you for a job, but you're interviewing us to see if you want to take a job from us. So don't be afraid to ask the questions that you need those answers to. What is it that's keeping you on the fence of actually accepting a job offer from us should we offer you one? Ask that question. So appropriate question topics would be, say, like business goals, current or future initiatives, career development, where the company's going. Avoid asking questions about salary and bonuses, policies and paid time off. These are all questions that you can ask after an offer is extended and before you actually make a decision. But if you ask those right off the bat, it may come across negatively. Now, some example questions like what has your career path been within the company? Say if you're asking me that as a recruiter, what do I enjoy most about the role or the company, or what the next steps in the interview process could be? So that's one thing I always like to tell people is think of those questions and don't be afraid to ask. What does failure look like? What does the training program look like? How long is the training program? And what does continuous development look like? So the last thing we want for you is to get a job offer and then 6 months after starting with us, quitting. That's the last thing we want, because we're putting a lot of, we're frankly putting a lot of time and effort into onboarding you and getting you ready for a role. We want you to be able to want that role. We want you to develop further into it and further progress within our company. So don't be afraid to ask 4 or 5 questions. That won't be any issue. And follow up if you have any after you get off of the call. We'll be always happy to help you out. So that is my TED Talk here. So that is really my presentation. Feel free to connect with us, whether on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, hashtag Life at Vanguard, hashtag Vanguard at HBCUs. Once again, I know you all are not a historically Black college university, or hashtag inclusion at Vanguard. So we do have about 25 minutes left. So what questions do you have? What are your thoughts on all of this, and what really resonated with you?
Joe, before questions, can I jump in quick with just one extra thought I had here? And great job on the presentation. But I just wanted to share with everyone, when Joe was sharing the opportunities that we have, we're also recruiting for an IT role. I don't know if there's any computer science majors or IT majors in this group, but we're hiring heavily into our software developer space. So if you have an interest in development, we're a Java shop here at Vanguard. We are shifting to AWS, Amazon Web Services. But if that's something that interests you, we're hiring heavily into that space, as well as our client-facing space. I know people hear, Vanguard and think it's only finance, but we're also 30% an IT company, and we have a ton of opportunities with that route as well. We do have an internship program you probably saw on that slide, but it has been filled at this time, along with our rotational development programs, which are 2-year rotational programs that have 4 rotations that are 6 months long. So you get to kind of test out different areas within Vanguard. We have a finance rotational program. We have one focused on business leadership, investment management, advice. So we have a number of those. Those are all filled too. I'm saying this not to make anyone upset or, feel badly, but if there are any sophomores or juniors in the group, just know we will be reposting our full suite of internship and rotational development opportunities this June for a summer 2023 start date. So I always encourage students and recent grads to get their applications in as soon as they're posted in June, once your resume is good to go and you're feeling comfortable, because they're very competitive. Every student wants an internship, right? Every student is excited about those development programs, and they're not the only way to get to Vanguard, but I know it's something that I do like to mention. So just keep that in mind. Just wanted to add some additional details there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah, there.
Of course.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. I know, Joseph, you mentioned you started as that client relationship associate and then moved on to, your role now, and being able to have that flexibility. That internal mobility is so important. And a nice quote, always invest in a company that's going to invest in you. So I think that, you all, it shows that you really are dedicated to that with the series certifications and everything too. So we do have a couple of questions coming through in the chat as well. So specifically about some of the entry-level positions, are those remote or are they on site? What does that landscape look like for you?
That is an excellent question. I'm sorry that I didn't actually touch upon that during the presentation. So once again, we're in the middle of a pandemic here. So for the past 2 years, we actually have been fully remote. You can't see behind me right now, but this is my apartment. But we are planning on going back into the office beginning in about April. So what that's going to look like is going to be on a hybrid-based model. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be in office, and Monday and Friday is going to be optionally remote. So let's see, right now fully remote, but we can volunteer to go back into the office if we wish. But that those returns are going to start within the next couple of months and continue onward throughout the summer there. Now, in terms of where our offices are, let's say Sean had a question of Northern California area. Where it stands right now, our offices are in Malvern, Pennsylvania, Charlotte, North Carolina, Scottsdale, Arizona. We are opening up an office in Dallas, Texas, and I'm sure we'll probably be expanding at some point in the future as well. I do not know very many details about that, of course. Now, where it stands though, relocation, if you're not within these areas, is something that would need to be considered at this time, since we do have that goal of going back into the office. But of course, with this pandemic, as anything that any of us have learned, is that everything has to be taken one day at a time. The environment is constantly changing.
I see the comment from Christina. I just want to call it out. I love that, right? You mentioned that you would love to invest your time and skills into a company that invests in your training. That was so important to me too, because I was a business management major. So I did have some background information on Vanguard. And, I kind of knew a little bit about finance, but I was nervous to start because I was starting in a client facing role and I didn't know if I'd be able to learn about the markets and all that technical financial acumen. My heart really wasn't in that stuff. I wasn't super passionate about the markets, things like that. So I knew it would be a learning curve for me. And Vanguard, that is so ingrained in our culture. We're very much a teaching institution. We do not expect you to come in and have all of the answers or know everything. I think your major and your college experience matters, but you learn a lot on the job and by doing things and having an open mind and having a desire to learn. So exactly what you mentioned, we invest in your training. We're very focused on your professional growth and development. And that's quite frankly something that we look for in people who are interviewing with us. So we're looking for that desire to learn and, that humbleness and just showing excitement and passion about our opportunities and our mission and our culture. So wanted to call that out because I felt similarly about that. And I was so intimidated getting into the financial services industry, but I love it here, and the people are so genuine. It's not a toxic finance environment or anything like that. So just wanted to mention that.
I will also agree. Back when I was in college, I think the last thing I wanted to do is actually go into finance. And since joining the company, I have to say it does teach you a good bit of life skills because it teaches you the patience to go through a customer service type position. But especially if you go through the investments track and they teach you how to trade stocks and ETFs, you're going to want to have trade stocks and ETFs, which can help you personally as well. So it teaches you a lot about investing for the client and how to use our systems and everything, but it does teach you how to invest for yourself. And without that opportunity, I don't think I'd be invested in the things I'm invested in today.
Wow, very cool. Kind of that training on just across the board. And we have a couple of hands up too. I think I saw Kyle Miller's hand up first. So Kyle, if you want to come off mute and ask the question, or feel free to pop that in the chat, totally up to you.
Hi, everyone. Unfortunately, I've been trying to open up the chat and I don't see the option at all on my screen. And while we were doing the presentation, I was searching on the internet and the option does not exist. So it's not in my little mini bar on the bottom. It's not when I click somebody's name to pop open the chat. So I was just looking for that. And if that's
No
something
worries.
that
You
can
can
be enabled.
ask away because we can hear you loud and clear. So
Oh, okay.
glad the microphone works.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I guess I have 3 questions. The first one is, how does Vanguard earn profits for shareholders?
That's a great question. So Vanguard, being that, it's actually an interesting answer because our company has a unique structure in that we're not publicly traded. We are owned by our clients.
Okay.
So the way that we generate profit, so to speak, I say profit in quote unquote because we actually give the profit back to our clients, is through the mutual funds. They invest in us within those funds. We invest those funds, and then how that profit is made is essentially sustains the company and goes back in the form of, say, dividend payouts or capital gain distributions to the client.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. I think Washington Mutual might work on that structure. It's not the most common. The partnership structure is not the most common type. It's usually publicly traded and such, but not us.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Yep.
My second question, so I'm a very unique individual. I'm in the military and I'm also a federal technician. As a federal technician, if I decided to do an internship, I would have to give up my position militarily and federal technician. So what what is the opportunity for me to be able to transfer and just trade careers over and be able to take a chance on Vanguard?
Absolutely. So it sounds like the internship programs may not be something to look into at that point there. But so once you're ready, our client relationship associate and our retirement plan associate, those are hiring all throughout the year. So if you're
Okay.
looking at making the switch into finance, once you're ready to make that jump there, whether it be say in the next couple months or later on this year or even next year, you can just submit an application and interview, see what it's like, see if it's something that you would want to make the switch into. And I can't stress this enough. Interview, like see what happens.
I understand.
Yeah, whether with us or with anyone really.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I kind of tied up that second question and made it a third all at once, if that makes sense.
No problem.
Thank you.
No
Really
problem.
great questions, Kyle. Thank you. And I think I had, let's see, we have Adam Gutman up next. Oh, I think you might be on mute, Adam.
It's Gutman.
Oh, Gutman, perfect.
And I
Thank
would
you.
like to know if the position is hourly, salary, or if it's only commission.
Good question. Vanguard does not operate off of commission. So if you're not a commission-oriented person like I'm not, then that's a good thing. So these positions are hourly. However, we operate on a salary type model. So what happens is we have our work weeks are 37.5 hours. That is what your base salary is. Now, with that said, any amount of time worked up to 40 hours is paid at your normal rate. Any amount worked above 40 hours is paid at time and a half. And especially during the busy seasons, tax season right now, overtime is typically offered. It's optional. You don't have to take it. You may have like a mandatory half-hour lunch here and there. However, it's optional to work before and after your shift. So it's hourly.
Okay, I'm also located in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
Okay. So in that case, we do have our office in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you were to say if we were to hire you, just theoretically right now, you would be working remotely for the time being until the official return to office actually occurs. In which case, if you're not within a commutable distance to Charlotte, relocation may be something to consider at that point.
Okay, so they would be able to consider remote at that point if they had to.
So the thing about remote is it's a little bit up in the air. This is a very highly regulated industry. So the only reason why we're able to work remotely, period, is because the SEC is allowing us to do so at this point. So we don't really know what the future is going to hold, if it's going to be permitted to have fully remote work, or if we're just going to need to work on hybrid, since that's what has been approved moving forward. Not to get into too much of the nitty-gritty, but that's the reasoning behind all of it.
All right, well, I would just play it by ear and see what would happen. Like we said, we take one day at a time. So,
Yep.
I'm also interested in the information technology position.
That's Hannah.
That is me. Adam, if you want to share your information with me, if you'd be interested in right now, again, we're hiring for our software developer role, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll send my information in the chat. And definitely, right now the market is hot for it. So if you're interested, send me an email. I'll pass your resume along to our IT recruiters and they can take a look at it. Okay.
That sounds good.
All right.
Networking as we speak. I love it.
There we go.
Perfect. And we have a couple of questions. Let's see. I have some hands up. So we have some questions in the chat, but I know that Jonathan has also had his hand up for a bit. So Jonathan, if you want to, turn off your mute or ask it in the chat.
I think Cody was before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Cody,
Love
did
the
you have a
camaraderie.
question? Oh, the question that came through the chat from Cody. Can you address Vanguard's culture and management style?
Absolutely. So our management style, we are a collaborative company. Now, I know that's something that you probably hear way too often. So the way that our management style works, and I assume, do you mean like between your team leader and yourself, or do you mean like bigger than that, like on the senior leadership? I'm going to assume it's the former. So team level. Okay, cool. That's what I have more experience with, of course, for now. But so the way it'll work is twice a month, as mentioned, you're going to have that that one-on-one with your team leader. And we are a company that really celebrates two-way feedback. Say there's something that's bothering you at work. Say there's an opportunity that you found in the way that calls are being handled. You can actually go to your team leader and discuss that with them, and they will work with you to find a solution to the problem. Just like how if they have constructive criticism for you, they will let you know as well. It's all in the matter. It's all related to getting you ready for that next step in your career. Since at the end of the day, these are entry level. They're stepping stones to help you get into what you want to do next year, the year after. Now, on top of that, there are on the alternating weeks, we have coaching sessions where your team leader is listening to you taking calls for about a half hour, and they'll go over constructive criticism in real time there. So say if there's anything that you're unsure about, or if there is any opportunity in how the call is being handled, they can go over with you to help improve that. On top of that, there are daily huddle meetings with your team where actually about 30 minutes each day where you'll go over how your performance went the day before. If you met your goals and you met your metrics, you can share with the team how you achieved them, like what best practices you've had. Or if on the contrary, you had a bad day or you just didn't meet those goals, what happened or what the team can do to help you out. Say if you had a particularly difficult scenario that caused a call to last a really long time, or you weren't sure which department to go to, they'll be able to work with you during those meetings to help get you set up. And over time, it'll help you really get over that learning curve and become a master within the role, or a subject matter expert, as we call it.
And I'll add, Joe, that's all so true. Like great sentiments. But even more generally speaking too, Vanguard is very focused on your professional growth and development. So in my experience, reaching out to any manager or senior leader or team leader, no matter what department they're in, if you want to seek their career advice or professional guidance or just network with them, everyone is so willing to do it. Like that is so ingrained in our culture. It's such a pay it forward type of just company vibe. And anytime people reach out to me, I get so excited. And, I definitely am still networking. I'm a young professional myself, but I think that's something that's really celebrated is just reaching out, building those connections. And it doesn't matter if you're reaching out to a senior leader, a principal, like anyone is willing to spend that time with you, which I think is so important, which is also kind of addressing the question on culture.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's see, Jonathan or Kyle, one of you had your hand up first. Which one would like to go first?
I can go first if that's all right.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions if you don't mind. So I guess my first one, since Mr. Bogle has passed, how do you think people will view mutual funds and indexing a few years from now? And how do you think Vanguard will educate young people about indexing and investing in general, as Mr. Bogle did?
Absolutely. So Mr. Bogle really created a legacy of mutual fund investing and was really a pioneer in what we know as index investing today. And that continues to live on. Now, with that said, like say in the early 2000s, that's when ETFs started coming out, and that's when we started really getting involved with active managed funds, and those aren't being ignored either. So with that said, we are still coming up with new index funds as well as active managed funds, and that's expected to continue. Because our philosophy is that with index-based investing, it's a very much a set it and forget it type of model where you put your investments into a broadly invested range within domestic and international stocks, domestic and international bonds, and you just leave it. or you dollar cost average and you just continuously add to it throughout the years. This isn't going away. This is our philosophy, and this is what we really made into our brand. Like you can't invest in cryptocurrency at Vanguard. it's not allowed. At least not directly so. So we've always been a more conservative type or fiscally conservative type firm when it's come to investments. That's not going to change, even though Mr. Bogle's not with us. And even when he did eventually retire as CEO and took more of a backstage type role, so to speak, as the company progressed into the 2000s.
Yeah, that would have been like the mid 90s roughly is when he probably would have left. Okay, so my next question would be, I'll try to tie this into one question. So I think Hannah mentioned that June is an appropriate time to apply for an internship for the next year. So that answered that one. But what should I be doing currently, to increase my chances of landing an internship at the company?
Absolutely. So some of the ways for that is study. Really excel at school. Get your GPA up if it's not already, like, say, above a 3.5, 3.6, or anything along those lines. But there's a number of things that we look for. Do you have prior internship experience? Do you have prior finance experience, or have you taken specific coursework to finance that sets you apart from other individuals? So these things, and how you've excelled, say, in various memberships with let's say business clubs or associations, can really help get you the right foot forward as you apply for these roles. Hannah, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, definitely, Joe. I was just gonna say, keep doing this. Like, one thing that I think is so important, I did not attend like events like this when I was in college. I did not utilize my career services office. My parents were constantly nagging me. I'm grateful I had them in my ear, but I didn't listen. They were like, you got to go to these events. You're going to find your next job here. And I just wasn't, I was like, no, it'll be fine. I got lucky being at Vanguard, I will say that, but I found myself in a position where spring semester, senior year, I'm scrambling, right? So keep attending events like this. Your network is one of your biggest tools in your toolkit. So continue to build on your network, meet employers, see, where you might be a good culture fit, what missions you feel aligned to, and make sure you're doing your research. So I think you all are off to a really great start just by being here. So, kudos to you all. And another thing I'll say, more kind of tactical, if you follow us, if you're on Handshake, follow us, because then you will be notified, I think, through Handshake whenever we're hosting different events like this, or when we post our jobs, or anything kind of new and upcoming with Vanguard. So stay on top of that, stay connected with us. We collect your information here, as Joe has a QR code up, and we can see what events you're attending. So if we see, Jonathan, that you're at this event and then you're also at 5 events next year, we're probably assuming you're pretty passionate about Vanguard. So keep coming to these things. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's why I'm attending.
Good stuff.
I have one last question, and I won't hold up everybody else that has questions. I guess, what is Vanguard doing that other buy-side firms aren't doing yet?
Absolutely. So, one thing that we're really doing is promoting our digital presence. It's no secret, we're our digital company. We've never had brick and mortar locations, but now more than ever, as we go into the digital age, we need to really step up our game. So some of the ways that we're doing this is with our digital advisor program and breaking into new markets internationally and really asserting that presence. As we break into, say, Europe or into Asia, this still holds true. We're still a digital company. We're low cost, and that's what helps us do that. But as other companies are developing their websites and developing their online offer, we need to be able to differentiate ourselves. Some of the ways that we're doing that is with our portfolio managers, our personal advisor services, like, say, with live advisors, and how that relates to our online infrastructure, our digital robo advisor, and how that goes into our digital infrastructure, and then how we can modernize our trading platform while promoting our passive-based approach. So once again, kind of like a low and slow type of deal there, but how do we keep modern with what can be seen as almost like an older way or an aging way of investing, even though it's not really aging. It just doesn't. It's not trendy. It's not cool, so to speak. It's practical. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know one thing. If I'm not mistaken, Vanguard got rid of fees for trading,
We did.
like regular securities. So I mean, that's a pretty competitive thing right there. So well, thank you both for coming today. I'll let everyone else ask a question now.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Those are great questions. And, it's exciting. I know we're at time now. So if anyone, if you have a few minutes, Joseph and Hannah, maybe like
I do.
5 more minutes or so, we have a couple more questions. If anyone, has to head out since it's 5, again, feel free to reach out to Southern New Hampshire University Career Services at COCE@snhu.edu, or you can call 888-672-1458 if you want to schedule time with the career advisor too, and all of that. So thank you for anyone that can't join us. We're gonna, address some more questions if you are able to stay. So I think we had, let's see, we had one come through on the chat. As far as for non-traditional students, what does the internship kind of look like working around someone's work schedule if they have to work at the same time too?
Absolutely.
take
So what
that.
it was, oh yeah, you can take it.
Yeah, no, I just to help you. I feel like you've been talking so much. Feel bad. And no, I was just gonna say probably same thing as Joe, but our internships are full time, so they are 37 and a half hour work weeks, and they're only offered during the summer. So we do primarily target juniors for that, so that they can be funneling into our full time rotational programs. We're not super flexible on offering, different hours for the internship program because it is meant to be a full work day. But what I would say, and Joe can probably share a little bit more about this, is some of our client facing roles, if you were thinking about full time, we're now offering part time. So that could be something that might be a little bit more flexible for your work schedule. This is something that we haven't traditionally done in the past. So it's actually really exciting that we're offering the part time work for some of those client facing positions, but that could be, a better option or something you could look forward to in the future.
Yeah, so I mean, with the part-time opportunity, that is still very new. And from what I have read, you are required to come in fully licensed. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Say if you're coming from Fidelity or JP Morgan, you already have your Series 7 and 63, then that's something that you could look into. Say if you just had a baby and you don't want to work full-time, you want to switch to a part-time type of opportunity, that's something to look into. But once again, it's still very new and we're still kind of working out the details of what it's going to be. Let's see. I do want to get to other questions in the chat, but I think, Kyle, you've had your hand up for so long. I want to get to your question. And then I'll go back into the chat to answer some of those questions as well.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Well, after talking to you, Hannah and Joseph, I'm getting very good vibes about how you guys feel about working at Vanguard, and I had questions about camaraderie and morale, and like at the end of the workday, how do you all feel, and are you excited to return to work the next day? Because you guys are giving a real positive energy, and I really like it.
What I always say is, I mean, Hannah and I are buddy at this point, so that if you want camaraderie, there we go. But what I always say is, whenever you walk into work, look around. How do all the other people look? And at Vanguard, people are very happy to come to work every day. There is this very nice, I'm not going to say family way because that's like the most cliche term I think I've ever heard. But there's this energy that goes around. Everyone's happy to work for us because they're happy with what the company stands for. You can come in and no matter what job you're doing, you know that you're supporting a great cause. Even though, say, we are technically a for-profit company, we're not like, say, a nonprofit charity or anything like that. We still have this mission of doing what is best for the client. And that fosters a collaborative, friendly, and approachable culture. It's not competitive. Just like how I was mentioning with how our advisors aren't commission-based.
Mhm.
Think about the competition that creates. Like, oh, it's every man for himself. Everyone's trying to get as many clients as possible. And that can be toxic, quite frankly.
Yes.
So by having it the way that we have it structured is team goals. And you're not going to get like necessarily like a bonus for how many clients you onboard into the service, but you're all working together rather than against each other and trying to top each other.
I understand.
So, yeah, that's how I
Well,
would really describe it.
so you guys are always excited or looking forward to like the next day.
I wouldn't be recruiting for the role if I weren't.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
No
And
problem. Great
Kyle,
question.
I'll add, like, we're human, right? We
Mhm.
have tough days, you know.
Yeah.
We can't pretend that we don't. But like Joe said, at the end of the day, I know that my work is, you know, having a positive impact on someone else. And if I am having a crummy day, I'm gonna go look to Joe and ask him to go grab a coffee, and we'll, you know, walk and talk it off, or virtual coffee, whatever it is. So having a really supportive team makes those moments a lot easier to manage. But it's a good question, and I think I'm going to start asking, you know, that in my future interviews, things like that. So
Yeah,
so,
I really appreciate it. You know, I mean, job satisfaction is so important because you can carry that home with the kids, and it's kind of hard to hit the switch once in a while, you know. But I mean, if you guys are always in a great mood and you're looking forward to going to work the next day, I mean, dinner at the table with the family is going to be awesome, you know. So I really appreciate it.
so
Thank you.
true. Thanks, Kyle.
I also saw Natalie asked a question in the chat. You mentioned do not mention salary, but I find that recruiters are putting me on the spot and I'm not properly prepared. So more often than not, one career will not give me an accurate salary. How would I give a salary without undercutting myself and asking the recruiter for help? Here's what I'll say about this. If the recruiter asks you for your salary expectations, just be honest. And then I know we're pretty open with what the salary is going to be. So just be honest with like, say what you're expecting. It's not necessarily going to make or break our decision for you there. So if the recruiter opens up the discussion, have that discussion, and that's perfectly fine. I know we tend to be open, but some companies may not be. It really all depends. But just know that really no matter what, you're going to know how much you're making in the role when you sign that offer letter. So it's not necessarily important for you to know how much you're going to be making during the first round of interviews or even the second round of interviews. But sure enough, when we give you the offer, we'll let you know, say, like, how much you're going to be making, what your benefits are going to look like, and you'll be able to see everything in writing. And at that point, you'll be able to determine, I'm ready to commit to this, or you know what, this isn't for me.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback, Joseph, and kind of being able to have that. And again, with I think Natalie had that question as far as kind of the experience and as a career changer. Do you see that trend with career changers, kind of in roles that you recruit for, and having that experience? You know, what could you recommend that can help them stand out if they're applying for something with Vanguard?
Here's one thing I really love to say, and it kind of makes me laugh, actually. I have hired finance majors for client relationship associate. I've hired music majors. I've hired special education teachers, and I've hired chemical engineers. What? So that's like to that point. People do make career changes and come to Vanguard. And that's what really comes into play with those transferable skills. Just because you don't have experience in finance and just because you may have been a mid-level employee and you're making a 180 career change doesn't mean that it's impossible. We welcome you with open arms as long as you really demonstrate that you have the willingness to learn more about finance and you have that drive to make that switch. That's perfectly fine because again, we will provide you with that finance background if you don't already have it. In fact, when I was hired back in 2017, one of my higher classmates was a fifth grade school teacher in Cheltenham, Pennsylvania, and she was able to take that experience. Think about it, the patience of working with children, being able to think outside the box and take different approaches to make sure they're retaining different information translates very well into working with someone who's not computer savvy on the phone and helping them navigate our website.
Wonderful. Yeah, and that diverse thought too, kind of coming from different industries and being able to contribute. So, that's valued and glad to hear that Vanguard sees that too. So, we're now 8 minutes past. I know we're getting there. I think we had one last question from Ms. Lorenz here. So if you want to address that, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up, and we could talk about kind of if they want to reach out to you directly or best ways for next steps there.
Absolutely. So financial firms or the industry itself is notorious for having 50 to 60-hour work weeks. I know taxis and other events might affect this, but can you give us more detail on how work-life balance would look like in salaried positions? This is such an excellent question. It's not the first time I've been asked it, but mind you, Vanguard's different. We're not on Wall Street. We're not even in New York City. And that really shows through with our corporate culture as well. Our work week is 37 and a half hours. So if you are working 50, 60 hours, say if it's offered and you decide that you want to do it, I've done it. It's not fun, but that money was gorgeous. um, just know that it's optional. As you go into more salaried positions, I'm not even salaried, let's be quite frank here. It may look different depending on, say, what type of work you're doing. Say if there aren't a large amount of you in the same position. But keep in mind, we're a company of over 20,000 employees. So if they're ask that question when you're interviewing for it. Say if you come on board with us and you're interviewing for a position that is fully salaried and is exempt from overtime, ask that question. Will I be expected to work more than 40 hours in a work week? What does that look like? What would be expected of me, and how frequently do you expect this to occur? These are all valid questions, and remember, you're interviewing the hiring manager just as much as the hiring manager is interviewing you.
Yeah, and I've actually found like weeks where, because Joe and I are still hourly, as you mentioned, but weeks where we have a ton of recruiting events or a lot going on, when I work like 40, 45 hours, I start to get up there a bit. And that's, me not managing my schedule, things like that. My leader will reach out and be like, is everything okay? Like checking in to make sure that things are going good, if there's anything he can do to get certain things off of my plate. So I think we're actually coached when we're hourly to stick within the 37 and a half hour work week. It's probably saving Vanguard money, honestly. So it's not, it's not common or part of our culture to be working all of this overtime unless you have a busier time of year. For our space, it's going to be fall, spring, sometimes later events, things like that. But yeah, I noticed that that's, something that I get asked about, and just, they check in. My leader is always making sure that we can handle what's on our plate.
Fantastic. And as far as kind of any additional questions or follow up there, what is the best way for attendees to reach out? I know Hannah shared her email, but LinkedIn, what do you recommend for for the next steps?
Absolutely.
Obviously, attending the events and continuing that connection and applying, but any other recommendations too would be great.
Absolutely. So definitely feel free to add us on LinkedIn. I'm easy enough to find with the spelling of my last name, of course. And I also just put my email down in the chat. So if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. And make sure, if you haven't already, scan this QR code. Otherwise, if you go back up early in the chat, I will paste it once more here, just in case if people joined late. Let's see here. That way we can follow up with you and you can get your resume in our database. All right. Perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for joining. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. Hopefully you all benefited from our presentation here, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Perfect. All right. Have a great week, everyone. And thank you again to our Vanguard and SNHU community for being here today and staying a bit late. And we're very excited to have been able to have you present with us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Be safe.
Take care.
Thank you.